Hello and welcome to a DFS preview for the 2022 Genesis Scottish Open. My name is Eric, and here at SweetSpotDFS, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. And we start here in the preview video by going over all the stats that'll help you do just that. Which means we're going to be going over the bucket system, which if you're unfamiliar with, I have a link in the description below that'll get you straight to a video that explains all about it. And honestly, you don't have to watch that whole video, you just got to watch the first 5 minutes and you'll have a good understanding of what it is. So I highly encourage you guys to go watch it if you don't know what the bucket system is. I'll also be going over the golf course information and tournament information for this event. It's technically a new event on tour, so we'll talk all about that here shortly. And I'll also recap the John Deere Classic to show you guys how the sweet spot process did for last week. But first, reminder, I like to run giveaways. The first being a subscriber giveaway. The things you need to know: you got to be subscribed if you want an entry into this giveaway, and you also need to comment down below. If you need a topic, just give me your favorite 9K golfer and above that you're going to roster you're going to put in your lineups. That's one way to get an entry. Another way would be to retweet the video that I'll post on my Twitter. That gets you an additional entry. And then I also put a strategy video on Tuesdays and a prize picks video on Wednesdays. If you comment on those, you get additional entries that way. Now we also have to reach the goal that I have on the screen right now of 450 subscribers. If we don't reach that goal by the end of the week, I'll shave $10 off this giveaway and rerun it next week. So it is all dependent on us hitting the goal. So if you can help, more power to you. It'll help us get to that goal much sooner. But also, if you're not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe down below and get us closer to that goal. If we don't reach the goal this week, I'll shave $10 off of it and it'll be worth $30 next week. And all your entries this week and last week will get pushed over into next week's giveaway. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully we hit our goal of 450 subscribers and we run this during Monday night's preview video of the Open Championship. The second giveaway that I have is a prize picks giveaway. If you're not signed up on prize picks, I have a link in the description below. That'll get you right to the sign up page utilizing the promo code SweetSpot. And if you sign up using that promo code and put at least $20 in your account, I'm going to give you that $20 back. Plus, prize picks will match your deposit up to $100. So that 20 turns into 40 and really only cost you your sign up information as well as that initial deposit of $20. But of course, don't let me stop you there. You can put $100 in there. Prize picks will give you an additional 100, so you'll have 200 in your account. And when all the dust settles, once you get that $20 back from me, it'll only cost you $80 to do that. So it's entirely up to you guys. Put as much as you want in there, you're still getting $20 back from me. Now, I also have a cheat sheet that I haven't yet updated fully, but that is also in the link or in the description below. There's a link to that spreadsheet. I'm just going to throw something on the screen right now. I do have the cheat sheet here, but of course you can see nothing has been populated. If you get here and it is populated, all I'll ask is make a copy of this spreadsheet. Go to that file menu, make a copy. That way, if you want to follow along with me in this video, by the way, this should be updated by the time I send this out to YouTube. That way you can use all the filters that I have in each of these spreadsheets. So I do have the dream sheet down here and the bucket system, which I have updated. There's more to talk about with this, so just hold your horses on that one. We'll talk about this when we get to the bucket system portion of the video, but you can follow along with me during this as well. So again, file, make a copy, and then that way you can follow along using the filters that I have in place. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about one other giveaway that I do. Optimizer. I also haven't updated that yet, but I usually have it ready for the strategy video because I use it in the strategy video. If you want access to that, email me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com. Say you'd like the optimizer. You also have to be subscribed and you got to comment down below. Again, I want to reward those that participate on the channel. Okay, those are all the giveaways. Let's go ahead and get into the John Deere Classic. And I've kind of done these reviews a little bit backwards. let's start with the optimal lineup. Since that's what my channel is all about, let's start here and then we can work through the sweet spot process. So your optimal lineup was JT Poston, Christian Bezuidenhout, Emiliano Grillo, Chris Gotterup, Scott Stallings, and Michael Gligic. That optimal lineup scored 720.5 points, and it used $47,300 of the salary. Now, when we went through the John Deere Classic with past optimal lineups during last week's preview, it showed that you wanted to leave a lot of money on the table. Now, I know I'm an optimal lineup hunter, like I love to chase the optimal lineup, but it is extremely unrealistic for you to actually hit the optimal lineup by leaving a lot of money on the table. So I don't suggest that whatsoever. Instead, I always try to get you as close to $50,000 as possible, because usually GPP winning lineups use most of the $50,000 salary. And guess what? This week it did. The $5 GPP winning lineup used all $50,000, and it scored 11 less points than the optimal lineup, 709. I almost thought that this was the optimal lineup when I was first putting this all together. That lineup consisted of JT Poston, Emiliano Grillo, Chris Gotterup, Scott Stallings, Denny McCarthy, and Cameron Davis. As you can see, it was a 9K, 3 8K golfers, and 2 7K golfers. You remember, I usually tell you you want to build 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 when it comes to your salary builds. And you have up to 2 substitutions you can make. And what I mean by that is, if you liked a 10K, or let's say if you didn't like a 10K, make a substitution from that. So I'm just gonna unhighlight 2 we'll unhighlight 2 8K golfers. As you can see, we have our, what would you call it, our core of a 9, 8, 7, 7. We're only missing a 10 and a 6. Well, you literally could substitute from a 10 to an 8K if you wanted. So when you do that, let's say we go 10 to an 8, JT Poston, we're probably saving $2,000, maybe $2,500, somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 when we do that. Now, what that gives you is, obviously our missing piece is a 6K golfer. Add $2,000, $2,500 to that 8K golfer, and you can get to Cameron Davis at $8,400. So that's what I mean by making 2 substitutions. Now, I firmly believe you want to still do the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, but the closest you would have done is going like Sahith Theegala, JT Poston, Cameron Bezuidenhout, these 2 7K golfers, and this would leave you $8,000 to work with. Now, this doesn't get you to a 6K golfer at all, because that would be leaving way too much money on the table. Really, the only closest one that I could even consider is, I mean, we could go with Mark Hubbard, and that we would use $49,400 of our salary, but we could easily just make a couple substitutions if we wanted to. I think what we could do is probably sub the 2 7s, grab a 6, and then an 8K. So this equals 49,700. So we literally would go 10, 9, 8, 8, 7, 6. So we're substituting just our 7K for an additional 8K, because we use enough cheap golfers from the 10, 9, 8 and 7K golfers to do just that. So this would have scored us 693 points, which wasn't even close to winning the GPP. Still would have made us decent money. I'm assuming. I think the winner of this GPP won by 10 points. So I think second place was like 699. So our 693 by just going over that 10, 9, 8, 8, 7, 6 lineup would have been close, but it really wouldn't have worked. Now, I usually like to give you what would be the most optimal lineup with the sweet spot process, and it was the GPP winning lineup. So that guy hit it dead on. Usually it's all 6 of your golfers inside the top 10, and you want to use up at least 49,000, if not more, of your salary. And this really was the only way to do it. So Congratulations on that GPP winner. He was also the Sweet Spot Optimal winner as well. Now, going from here, I think it's just smart just to get right into the Sweet Spot process. And we'll start with the Sweet Spot ranks. Just a reminder, JT Poston won. He actually won pretty decently. I don't have it updated, but I think he won by 3 shots, if I remember correctly. 263 versus 266. Yeah, he won by 3 shots. So he was firmly in position to win most of that tournament. Like, he didn't really have any issues. He was, I think, a wire winner as well. So anyways, I don't really like to provide a full recap. Just takes too much time. We go by Sweet Spot ranks. What I want to see, I'm sorting this obviously by ranks. In the top 20 of my rankings, I want to see at least 4 guys in the optimal lineup. That's how I feel like the rankings are great or are good. This week was weird. If you were watching the fantasy golf pod that I do with Chad, we were talking about in our Tuesday pod, I should say, where it was like the do's and don'ts of making PGA DFS lineups. Most of the time, the salaries with DraftKings and my Sweet Spot rankings, they kind of go hand in hand. Like, they line up really well. This week they weren't. Like, you can see 1 through 20, we've got a bunch of 7K golfers in here, a bunch of low 8K golfers, and if we sort by salary, 7,900 is my lowest salary you see on the first page. But again, if I sort this by the Sweet Spot ranks, we've got 77, 74, 72, 77 in there, another 74. So there was a lot of value, perceived value. With that being said, it was such a weak event, I'm really not going to hang my head on the poor performance of the Sweet Spot ranks. Like I said, we got 2 golfers. I didn't say this, but we did get 2 golfers, which is nice. It is a little bit of a consolation. And if I scroll down, JT Poston is my 22nd ranked golfer. He won the tournament. So we had 3 inside the top 22, which is good. Feels good. I'm not really trying to find 6 golfers because that's just not how golf works. 6 golfers inside my top 20. 4 would be nice. 3 is pretty close, and I'm okay with that. Now, what I usually like to use these rankings with is the marquee tee times, which I'm pleased to tell you worked out this week. Now, Webb Simpson had a withdraw in his group. Jason Day was the other 10K golfer, or the other golfer that was there. He withdrew. Ted Potter Jr. replaced him. I won't lie, I felt bad for Webb, because Lanto had his chipping yips. Ted Potter was hitting it all over the place. I couldn't imagine being in Webb's shoes, watching just the train wreck that was that group. Like, group synergy it is a thing in golf, and it does wonders. You can usually kind of draft off of good playing partners, but when players are playing poorly and they're doing it in such a bad way, kind of like what Lanto Griffin and Ted Potter Jr. was, that can bring you down. So I went 70% on Webb this week. Obviously, I didn't do that well with DraftKings DFS, which is fine. I will continue to stick to that strategy as I go. But if I go ahead and highlight all of these other groupings, these are the marquee tee times. I usually tell you want to grab 2 to 4 golfers from the marquee tee times, and I've highlighted all the marquee tee times. The other ones down here are called honorable mention groups. And I really just like to, I use these honorable mentions as kind of a record keeping purpose, like for record keeping purposes, to see if, the top 9 groups as opposed to the top 6 groups. Now, in order to be a marquee tee time, your group cumulative rank has to match or has to be under a certain threshold. And I explained that during the preview. It's like between 92 and 102 points. So they're ranking points. You add them all together. If they're under 102, they're a part of the marquee tee times. But I generally want them to be between 92 and 102, and it's usually reserved for the first 6 groups. So that is what we have with the marquee tee times. Well, guess what? Scott Stallings and Christian Bezuidenhout were in the optimal lineup. So 2 out of 4, check that box off. That was a success. And I usually also say, don't play golfers from the same group. Again, that also hit because Scott Stallings and Christian Bezuidenhout were not playing together Thursday, Friday. So this part of the sweet spot process, we check off flying colors that passed. The rankings, I mean, maybe I should say 2 to 4 from the top 20 you want to build your lineups with, and that's kind of how you would get to some of these guys. Maybe that's what I do going forward, and that's just how we view success with the sweet spot ranks. We'll see. Denny McCarthy was in the GPP winning lineup. He's a part of the honorable mention. And then Emiliano Grillo was a part of the optimal lineup, and he was one group below the honorable mentions. He was paired with Brandon Hagee, and that wasn't a good group. And then Cameron Davis was with Cameron Champ, and I don't know who their third was, but that guy withdrew as well. And I don't remember what replaced him, but those guys together were pretty good. So that was really close to being an honorable mention. They were my 11th ranked group. And again, I don't remember who that third golfer was in their group, but they were pretty close to being in the honorable mention / marquee tee time. So yeah, what do we have? 4 GPP, 4 golfers in the GPP winning lineup, 2 optimal lineup golfers, and I mean, I guess 4 sweet spot optimals as well, based off of the green salaries. So yeah, the marquee tee times for the John Deere Classic worked really well. And again, I go through marquee tee times during strategy videos, so I also look at the sweet spot ranks then as well. So if you want to see what those are for the Genesis Scottish Open, I do that in tomorrow's video for the strategy video, the strategy portion of it. So definitely check out that video tomorrow. The last piece to get to are how well did the buckets do? How well did the sweet spot buckets do? Now, I have a formula that's driven in here. If certain criteria are met between the top 10 optimal lineup and the sweet spot optimal, a Y means the bucket was successful, and that means these projections that I had were successful projections. And no means they weren't successful projections. So when we look at all this, you can see there are 3 no's, meaning 33 out of 36 buckets were correct despite this very crappy field and very volatile, results. Buckets still shine through. Now, it's not as good as it usually is. Usually we see 34 out of 36, but 33 out of 36 is still pretty darn good. And if we're kind of being a little bit more honest here, this bucket here that failed, there was 1 in the sweet spot optimal. Now, I don't include that in the formula that makes it a yes or a no, but this one, my projection was 0 to 1 from that bucket. So the sweet spot optimal, that hit. And like when I go through all the rest of these, all of the other buckets actually hit as well in the sweet spot optimals. I think except for the strokes gained buckets that I have down here. And there is kind of reason to consider these, like retool my strokes gained stats to incorporate something else. I'm thinking about, instead of using off the tee stats, I'm thinking of ball striking stats. So I might change this up in the future. We'll see. But how it looks now, 2 buckets missed with the strokes gained stats. That'd be your positive off the tee, positive putting, and then whatever negative stat in between. Could be approach, could be around the green. And then our strokes gained 3 bucket is positive off the tee, negative putting, and again, whatever stat in between. So those are the buckets that missed. I thought there would be more strokes gained 3 golfers inside the top 10. And there was only 1 all the way across the board. That was top 10 optimal lineup and sweet spot optimal. And then for strokes gained 2, we only had 12 golfers in that bucket, and it's not a very high hitting, like it doesn't succeed all that much. We had 2 across the board there when I was only projecting 0 to 1. All in all though, 33 out of 34, pretty darn good. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Genesis Scottish Open. Bring up the tournament information. You can see this tournament is not a new tournament. It is new for the PGA Tour. So the DP World Tour, the Euro Tour, and the PGA Tour kind of merged prior to, I mean, if you're following along with all of this golf news with like Live Golf and stuff like that, the DP World Tour and PGA Tour kind of merged together, even more so than just for this event. I think next season, the top 10 golfers in the DP World Tour, if they don't already have PGA Tour status, they will get PGA Tour status. So I think it's just whatever the top 10 in the DP World Tour rankings, if they don't already have, or the ones that don't have PGA Tour status, so the top 10 without PGA Tour status will get PGA Tour status. That's not anything really to be concerned about with this video and this preview. I just wanted to provide that information. But this was like kind of the first stepping stone of kind of that merge between the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour. So technically this is a new PGA Tour event, but it is not a new Scottish Open. Like, it's not a new tournament. This is the Scottish Open. It was established in 1972, North Berwick, Scotland. The golf course that we'll talk about here soon has hosted this tournament the last 3 years. This will be the 4th year. Prior to that, I don't remember seeing it, and usually my stats go back to 2013. I can tell you this golf course has not hosted this tournament any other time from 2013 and on, except for the last 3 years. The field size this week is 156 players. Cut is top 65 in ties. That's normal on the PGA Tour. Your average winning score is -16. Now it fluctuates with the results. Just for this golf course, last year, I believe we've seen it was 18 under. The year before that, in 2020, it was 11 under as the winning score. And then the year before that was 22 under. So I'm assuming because this is a European event and it's in Scotland, that weather probably has a huge factor in defending this golf course and how tough it will be. So I think that just goes without saying, and it's also the easy thing to say when it comes to these Euro events, especially in the United Kingdom, you know, anywhere there. Wind is going to be very challenging if it's up. So we'll talk more about that here shortly. Average cut score is -2. I've seen, when I went through all of the different cut scores, I've seen as worse as +4, and I've seen as good as -4. So it's really up and down, but -2 is usually what gets it done with the cut around here. Strength of field 644. That is a very, very good strength of field. I think on PGA Tour average is around 400 if you exclude all the majors. So 644 is pretty darn strong. Which, you know, you probably want to grab all of the good golfers. And let me just back up. I'm not going to go through like subjective things. Use this when you use your research. Look at strength of field of 600 and greater and see what results transpire with some of these golfers. And I think you'll get a good sense of who to roster based off of that. The weather looks like it's pretty consistent, 69 degrees, 67 degrees, and it's going to be a bit windy, 10 to 20 miles an hour. This is pretty cold in PGA Tour standards during this time of the year. So I'm sure we'll see sweaters. I'm sure we'll see stocking caps. I'm from Minnesota. I think that weather's perfect. So I would be in shorts and a t-shirt, but I'm sure they won't be. Now the golf course, the Renaissance Club. Architect, or the designer I should say, was Tom Doak. I think you can use Tom Doak as a data point in your research. Just go check to see how golfers on his golf course have performed. It's not going to be the same because this is like, I think this is his, I guess I don't want to just say words to say them. I don't remember Tom Doak doing a link style golf course, and you should put that in quotations, like air quotes, a link style, because a lot of people call this a faux links, like a fake links golf course. I'll say this, it's right by the sea. There's going to be a lot of, I mean, there is the potential for a lot of wind, and there aren't very many trees. So although maybe the specific characteristics of a link course are not present, and that's why it's not considered a links course, it's still going to play like a links course because of the wind. Or the possibility of wind, because this course isn't protected by trees. There are some trees, but they're very it's just wind is, put it this way, it's not gonna protect wind coming through this golf course. If there's any wind, which obviously we just said 10 to 20 miles an hour, there's no protection. So it is a, whatever you want to call it. I think the easy way to say it is a link style golf course. Par 71, 7,200 yards, just under 7,300 I should say, and red fescue is used throughout the course. So, and it's like, it's all pure red fescue. There's no mix whatsoever. Those are all data points you can use, and I encourage you guys to use them. Now, they're not end all be alls, but definitely do it. Because there aren't a lot of trees present at this golf course, there's not really a necessary shot shape that benefits here. Now, I show that 2 holes, a fade, one on off the tee and one on approach, will benefit for those holes. Now, I think as long as you place your golf ball in the right spots, you can hit whatever shot shape you absolutely want. I think it's going to be more regulating the wind or controlling your golf ball in the wind. So really, shot shape doesn't really matter. And I'm not going to do a golf course breakdown, because what does that, like, when it comes to DFS purposes, what good does that do? It boggles my mind when I watch course breakdowns for golf courses or for these DFS previews and stuff like that. It's like, what's the purpose? There's no, unless you're talking about a shot shape or a particular strength or weakness of certain golfers, there's really no purpose. So that's why I've done away with course breakdowns. I just show you kind of like the shot shape requirements. Yeah, again, I think it's just fair game. Play whoever you want, because this golf course doesn't really prohibit you from rostering anybody, honestly. I think it just has everything to do with the weather this week. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this, the bucket system. Go here, summary. There's a lot of zeros here. Now, here's what I was going to get to. Because this is a new event, technically there are no, and basically with the bucket system, what I like to do is I like to capture stats leading into an event. Well, because this is a new event, we haven't seen events prior or to the lead up to this. So like looking at last week's stats, really can't do that, because I'm sure I should probably incorporate the European Tour or the DP World Tour, all of those events. And last week was the Irish Open. I should include those in my last week's stats, because we do have golfers from that tournament in this tournament, and I'm sure we'll get a better result when we look at last week's stats to do just that. The issue is I don't record European stats, so I don't have the Irish Open from last week, and I didn't put it into this because I also would want to go all the way back to 2013 and do that exact same thing for each Scottish Open. It's 4th of July week, you know, like the weekend was 4th of July. I didn't spend any time putting any of the data together. And quite frankly, those Scottish Opens were different than this Scottish Open. We have more PGA Tour players at this event than we've done in the past. So it's just a really unfair kind of like comparison to do. So unfortunately, some of the buckets we just have to kind of ignore. So like the last week stats, that's what I would ignore. Now course history, I did record course history dating back to 2019 because of the Renaissance Club. So if I go to my course history tab, I do have data going back to 2019, but I don't have data going back prior to that. And usually what I like to say is we need 2 years of course history data, which, I mean, we have 3 years. So we could use course history buckets this week, and I guess I don't mind doing that. And we'll go through each one of these and how I feel about them. Recent form we could also use. I'm pretty sure last week it's gonna, again, I would want to put the Irish Open into this, but it's not an end all be all. It's just one event. It's not a big deal. My recent form goes back the last 7 weeks. I think we have a pretty accurate depiction of recent form from, you know, those tournaments. We don't have any salary data to use because DraftKings hasn't had, well, I shouldn't even say that. They have had Scottish Open events. I don't have that data, so I can't go over that stuff. And then strokes gained stats, again, I don't have lead-in data for any Scottish Open in the past, so I can't use these also. So strokes gained data, out the window. Salary, or let's put it differently. Strokes gained buckets, out the window. Salary buckets, out the window. Last week's stats, out the window. We can use last year's stats. We can use course history stats, or course history buckets. And we can use recent form buckets. But here's the thing. I don't have any recorded data for the buckets for any of the years in the past. So what does that mean? You're going to have to use my knowledge of the bucket system for projections. And in the future, I'm hoping to have a database, or I should just say this, I hope to have a website where if we do get new events like this, I can just use a universal bucket system and say, here's what this looks like. We can use it based off of strength of field. We could use it based off of anything. I mean, strength of field is the first thing that comes to mind because it makes sense using something with strength of field above like 600. So in the future, we'll have that. Unfortunately, we don't here. So again, you're going to have to use my word. So if I break these buckets up and we go to last year buckets for the first one, we do have data. Like, pay attention. Really, the important one, the only important things to look at are how many golfers are in that bucket this week. And then we can kind of piece together like a projection that makes sense. So right away, your last year ones, let me actually tell you what the most important buckets are for the last year buckets. They're usually the 3 that I've just highlighted. Your last year 1 buckets, your last year 5, and your last year 6. Now, I know these say ranks, but they're really identifiers. You know, when it comes to the 1, the 5, and the 6. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. Just an identifier. Now, your last year 1s mean these are golfers who top 20 this event last year. This is usually one of your most important buckets to select golfers from. And when the total is above 12, you definitely want to pick at least one guy from that bucket. Now, we have 19 golfers in that bucket this year. 19. And that strength of field is 193 of the golfers that are in that bucket, which is 30% of the strength of field points. I'm going to tell you, you want 1 to 3 golfers from that bucket. So your 1 to 20 range, grab golfers who top 20 here last year, 1 to 3 of them. When it comes to guys who missed the cut, more than likely this is a volume driven bucket. Now, there are 33 golfers in that bucket this year. I would just say it's 0 to 2 because this is a volume driven bucket usually, and you typically do see golfers from this bucket inside the top 10, but there aren't nearly as many as I would like to see. 33 is pretty low, and the strength of field points only accumulate a 4% of the strength of field, which is not good. So I would actually really lean 0 to 1, but it could be up to 0 to 2. And then your did not plays for last year, there's 74 golfers in that bucket. A lot of these are going to be PGA Tour players that are actually pretty good. I mean, 326 strength of field points go towards that bucket, which is 50% of the strength of field points in this event. I'm going to say you want somewhere between 3 to 6 golfers from this bucket in your lineup. So guys who did not play last year, I think you want 3 to 6. And if anything, maybe I waver on like the 2 to 5. So I guess anything between 2 to 6. but I'm leaning more towards 3 to 6, honestly. So 3 to 6 here, did not plays, and 1 to 3 top 20s. So if you wanted to build a lineup, you could literally grab 2 golfers from that 1 to 20 range, so the last year 1 buckets, and then fill in the rest with the did not plays. And I think you're going to be okay, to be quite honest. And of course, if you like any of the guys in here, I'm literally telling you this because I've seen this more often than not. Really just select 0 to 1. So if they did play last year and they have anything worse than a 20th place finish, just play 1 guy from each of those buckets. And remember, they go by 20-point increments. If you haven't seen that bucket system video, go watch it. I talk about it there. So those are your last year buckets. Remember, we're not talking about last week because really, if I do that, you're going to see we have a total of 20 guys from the John Deere Classic over here. Literally could just say 0 to 1 for each of those buckets, and it would really mean very little to you. So nothing with last week buckets. Going to course history buckets, we do have a little bit of data here that we can use. Very much, I shouldn't even say that. Usually your best buckets are that 2 to 4. The course history 2, course history 3, and course history 4 buckets. But we have 16 golfers in the course history 1 bucket. Typically, you do want to grab golfers from this one. So if you are using the cheat sheet that I have available, you actually can sort by golfers from your course history 1s. So you can do literally what I just did and look at all your course history 1s. There are some good names here. So when we go back to the buckets, course history 1, you probably want somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket as well. So just going back to here, you can find 1 golfer in the 9K and above range to anchor your lineups around pretty easily. Like, there are good golfers, including all 4 of the 10K golfers. So that's what I would kind of go with when it comes to this course history 1 bucket. And then sprinkle in, you know, basically 1 to 3 of any of the other buckets. Because I could literally see at least 1 from each of the other buckets being inside the top 10. And then your did not plays. Pretty good golfers in that one. I mean, if we go ahead and take a look, you would go to the course history 6. And the 6 is just an identifier saying no course history. And you've got most of your 8K golfers in here. Like, a lot of people like Victor Hovland this week. Jordan Spieth is in that bucket. Hideki Matsuyama, Cameron Smith, Patrick Cantlay, Sungjae Im, Joaquin Niemann, Cameron Young, Max Homa. Any of those golfers could easily finish inside the top 10. But it's really entirely up to you. And I would choose somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers from this bucket to be inside or to be in your lineup. So I would max it out at 4. I definitely want to play at least 2. But that's about it. So I guess my favorite bucket this week would be the course history 1 to 3 golfers from that bucket, and then your course history 6s. I would say like 2 to 4 just because of how great of golfers are in that bucket. Nearly 50% of the strength of field points go towards that bucket. So that's what I would use as well. And then going to recent form buckets, this is pretty easy. We can use kind of what it looks like, you know, every single week. We have 4 guys that have really good recent form. That's usually 0 to 1. So 0 to 1 golfers from that bucket. I wouldn't do any more than that. These 3 buckets are your important buckets, week in and week out. So recent form 2s, each of these buckets are 1 to 3, easily. 1 to 3 golfers you want from these buckets. Maybe not so much recent form 4. Maybe you want somewhere between 0 to 2. So I think it's 1 to 3 recent form 1s, 1 to 3 recent form 2s, 1 to 3 recent form 3s, and then 0 to 2 recent form 4s. And if you really want, you can sprinkle in some of these guys in recent form 5 and 6, but I don't recommend it. I think you live in these 4 buckets with what I would think are the most confident ones would be recent form 1, 2, and 3. Now, those are all your main, those are the core 4 of the buckets. Going into salaries, We have 4 10K golfers. Quite honestly, you want 1 to 3. That usually is the same every single week. Actually, I should say 1 to 3. I'd say 0 to 2. Yeah, this is very similar to like last week at the John Deere Classic. Not similar as in strength of field points or just quality, but because there are only 4, that just increases the opportunity where we see 0 inside the top 10. But more often than not, we always usually see 1. And even last week when Jason Day withdrew before the event, he only had 3 10K golfers. Sahith Theegala did his best to try to get inside the top 10. He finished 16th. So I think starting with the 10K golfer is always a smart move. 0 to 2. Probably want 1, but 0 to 2. 9Ks, there are 7 in the field this year. Usually we see somewhere between 6 to 7 in the 9K range. So this is right on par, and I would say somewhere between 0 to 2 that you want in your lineup from the 9Ks. 8Ks, it's pretty decent. Strength of field wise, it's pretty decent. We have 10 golfers, which you normally see in the 8K range, somewhere between 9 to 11, I think you usually see in the 8K range. We see 10, so right in the middle. 128 points goes to strength of field. That's 20% of the strength of field points. That's pretty good. So seeing 0 to 2 golfers in this bucket is pretty reasonable. 7Ks, this is where most of our lineups live and die. I usually tell you want 2 7K golfers in your lineup just to start with anyways. I think 1 to 3 will be inside the top 10 in the 7K range. So I definitely think you want a 7K golfer in your lineup, and up to 3 is doable. And then the 6K range is the 6K range for a reason. We've got 39 golfers in the high 6K range and 52 golfers in the low 6K range. Pick your poison. I usually say no more than 2 6K golfers total. That means, 0 to 2. Okay, this is what I usually mean. 0 to 2 high 6K golfers, or 0 to 1 low 6K golfers. And you can mix and match. You can go 1 in the upper and 1 in the lower, and that'd be fine as well. But really, don't go more than 2 6K golfers. Usually not a good recipe to do 3. So that is my advice when it comes to salaries. And then when it comes to strokes gain stats, this has been so hit and miss over the last few weeks. We have 18 golfers in that strokes gain 1. I'm thinking we're going to see 2 to 4 golfers inside the top 10, just because this is a high quality bucket. 7 golfers are in the 9K range and above, and that means that average salary is $8,600. Because this isn't 50% of the 9K range, I'm not going to lower that projection. I still think 2 to 4 are going to be inside the top 10, and you want at least 2 golfers in your lineup. The rest of the buckets, I think strokes gain 3 is probably the only other solid one to choose from. We have 35 golfers in that bucket. I'd say 1 to 3 will be inside the top 10 from this bucket. 0 to 2 for strokes gain 2, 0 to 2 for strokes gain 4, and then 0 to 1 for each of these buckets down here. So again, I'd probably anchor around strokes gain 1. Definitely want to include 1 strokes gain 3 in my lineup, and then mix and match the rest of them. So that is the bucket system in a nutshell. And again, it's just based off of my opinions. Because I've been around the bucket system for so long, I have a pretty good idea of what normal projections would be. The only reason why we don't have projections on the screen is because we don't have any historical data for any of the Scottish Opens prior to this year. And again, that's because it was a European Tour event or a DP World Tour event prior to this year. And of course, I don't record that data, at least I don't yet. Maybe somewhere in the future I will, but I just don't have it right now. So we went with basically my knowledge of the bucket system, what I typically see, based off the strength of field points, also, how many golfers are in each of those buckets. Based off of that knowledge, I kind of know what the projections would be. So those are, again, how I feel it would go. And I feel pretty good about those projections, by the way. That is going to be it for the preview. I don't have anything else to add other than reminding you guys of giveaways. Again, the first one being a subscriber giveaway. We have to reach 450 subscribers before I run this giveaway. No matter what, if it's this week, next week, the week after, we got to get to 450 subscribers. We're at 419. We need 30 new subscribers. Once that happens, I'm running this giveaway, and I'm running it for anyone who is subscribed that comments on any of my videos. So you get a free entry per video. I'm putting a preview video out right now. You'll see a strategy video tomorrow. You'll see a prize picks video Wednesday. If you comment on each of those videos, you'll get 3 entries to this giveaway. And your entries never go away. If we don't run that giveaway this week, I am pushing all your entries to next week, and the week after, and the week after, until I run the giveaway. Again, I want there to be an incentive, and I want to reward those that participate on my channel. So that's why I have the goal first before the giveaways ran. That's why I call it a subscriber giveaway. So be subscribed if you're not already, and comment down below. And again, you can share on Twitter to get 1 more free additional entry. So you can get up to 4 this week if you share any of my stuff on Twitter. And then of course there's a prize picks giveaway. Link in the description below. Get you straight to the sign up page, and it will already populate the promo code SweetSpot. And if you sign up using that promo code and put at least $20 in your account, I'm gonna give you your $20 back. So you get to play this for free. And prize picks will match your deposit up to $100, meaning that 20 turns into 40, and it'll only cost you that initial deposit as well as the sign up information. So again, link in the description below. And if you didn't already know, you could have followed me throughout this whole video by looking at the cheat sheet that is in the description. Also, there's a link for that cheat sheet. Go check it out, and maybe rewind this and follow along with me if you so choose. But that is all that I have. So I'm gonna bid you guys adieu. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.